Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, this is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You're here to discover a life with clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. A little bit of housekeeping. For those of you who want a conference with me, please go to askjoannevictoria.com/askjv and fill out the form. So, we have Dustin Reichmann. I should have talked to him about the pronunciation of his last name before because it's many ways of pronouncing it. Dustin is a business coach who helps ambitious entrepreneurs get unstuck and rapidly increase their profits with confidence. And I'm sure that the listeners, the ambitious entrepreneurs, always have some issues. So here he is. Welcome to the show, Dustin Reichmann.
Thanks, Joanne. Yeah, it's close enough, and you definitely used the most common pronunciation. We go by the German pronunciation, which is actually Reichmann, but close enough. And I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, I'm going to write down Reichmann, and I'm going to make a note of that. So, you live in St. Louis, and you started this business for entrepreneurs trying to get their attention in order for them to get unstuck, rapidly increase their profits with confidence and clarity. So how do you do that, and how did you get here?
Yeah, so I think in sharing the journey of how I got here, it'll shed some light on how I do it too. How I've done it for myself and how that's helped me help others. So my background is actually in engineering. So I had an engineering career as a consultant for a long time, about 17 years. And during that time, I was also an entrepreneur and had several side businesses and projects. And the very first of which is a site called Engaged Marriage that grew out of marriage ministry that my wife and I were doing. And I had a desire to bring it online. So I created that site way back in 2009. It still exists today. Now it's a membership site and a lot of digital resources for couples. Mm-hmm. But as I was looking to get out of engineering, I was juggling a lot of different things, of course, trying to make that leap with a wife that was a stay-at-home mom. We have 3 kids, and I was the sole breadwinner. But the entrepreneurial bug and the pull was just too strong. So I ultimately made that leap. And to support our family in that time, I took on a lot of marketing clients, and I learned marketing through the years and running my own business, as well as what I was doing in my engineering job, became a lot of sales and marketing. And so one of those clients was a local butcher shop, and I really hit it off with the owner, and we had a lot of the same values and ambitions. And we co-launched a brand called Fire Creek Snacks. And so we brought that online in 2018. And it's an e-commerce business, does really well in brick and mortar as well as online. And that leads very directly to where I'm at today, because in promoting and marketing Fire Creek Snacks, what we learned was really how to tell the right story about our brand. And we got very clear on that. And that gave us confidence to go out into the market and compete against, billion-dollar brands, literally, and kind of hold our own. And one of the ways that we did that was through marketing partnerships, specifically podcast guesting. So in summer 2020, as we can all recall, COVID changed a lot of things, including our business. And so we looked for an alternative way to share our message, and that was it. And I had a lot of success with it. And basically in publicly marketing Fire Creek, I had a lot of entrepreneurs reaching out saying, how are you doing this? How are you getting featured? How do you craft your story? How do you craft your offer? Those sort of questions. So simple success coaching, which is really the focus of what we're going to talk about today, grew very organically the past several years out of marketing my other businesses. So that's kind of how all these things fit together. And they seem kind of odd when you look at them in isolation, but they're very directly were stair steps from one to the next that have gotten me to the point today where I help a lot of other entrepreneurs with their marketing.
I find it's important, if you're going to partner with anyone, that your values are so vital.
Yes.
It's just because if you don't think in the same manner, you're not going to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not a stretch to say a business partnership is very much like a marriage.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually harder to get out of than
Yes, it is.
So it's very important. And we did practice that. I guess you could say we dated for a while before we got married. And, I was helping him with his brick and mortar butcher shop businesses. And we did that for, I think, 6 months. And then I brought the vision online. Then we traveled actually to a dozen trade shows together in 2019. And it was only in the middle of that actually became a partner. So yeah, we had probably a good year of experience and just a professional relationship before we entered into an actual partnership.
What kind of trade shows would you go to?
Well, we were experimenting. We were trying to find product market fit for. So I should let people know. So Fire Creek Snacks we call them craft meat sticks. So it's kind of a Slim Jim, but a much healthier version. And it's made with real hickory smoke. It's got a really kind of bold messaging and branding behind it. So we knew we were kind of specialty. So we went to some like convenience store trade shows, which you might expect, but we also went to a lot of hardware store trade shows, and that actually became one of our top channels. So we sell, into a lot of hardware stores. We're also very popular in the golf industry. And so those were the majority of those dozen trade shows were hardware and golf oriented.
That's amazing. I would never, well, I can't say I would never because that is not where my mind goes
right
now. I mean, that doesn't do that, but it would be like golf and hardware. Yeah. The people who go buy hardware, they would chew on something like that, like fire snacks. And then the golf people are always looking for something to chew on, literally chew on.
Yeah. It's actually a perfect snack for something like golf or being a contractor because, it doesn't require refrigeration. It's not going to melt. And it's actually quite healthy. It's 7 grams of protein, almost no sugar. So people that like to eat low carb or keto are attracted to it. So yeah, so that's that. We did find a strong foothold there, and we learned a lot. Now I'll just say, if anyone listening hasn't experienced trade shows, easily, personally, I sampled 5,000 samples, like toe to toe with business owners, right? Because the people walking these trade show floors are wanting to buy things to put in their store or their shop.
Right.
And so it's a very different customer than trying to sell to the end user who's just an impulse buyer trying to buy a $2 snack stick. So, but we learned a lot, and we've had 4 different versions of our packaging as a result. So I know one of the themes today is clarity. So one of the ways that we got a lot of clarity on our messaging and what people cared about was by sampling in live reactions and answering questions on the spot. And I think that was an invaluable experience.
It sounds it. I'm intrigued because it's just, I've been to a couple of trade shows. It's just too many people for me.
I'm an introvert.
Like,
so
yeah.
by the end of a 12-hour day, especially being on the other side of the table and you're in a snack aisle, so you're basically like a carnival barker, right? It's like, hey, come here, try this sample. And I hate it. I just absolutely, it gives me like, chills in the bad way when I think about it right now. And luckily we haven't had to do any of that since COVID, and we found these other ways to market. But again, I while it was difficult, it was definitely transformative in how we talk about our brand.
So how do you market the product now?
Well, it was really about finding the claims and the nutritional things that people cared about, and even things like the story behind the brand. Like it's a very unique story, and my business partner's heritage. He's a 3rd generation butcher. His grandpa started what they do in 1952. And so you start having conversations with people, and they say, what makes this different? Or is this just, there's another guy across the aisle that's got a meat stick, why should I sell yours and not his?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just that. I mean, if you look at our packaging now, it's very clear. I'm looking at actually a package right now. It says gluten-free, 7 grams of protein, no sugar, and soy-free, and no nitrates. We found that that's actually the stuff people cared about from a nutritional standpoint. And if you saw our packaging, we have 4 flavors currently. We came up with very unique, bold colors for each of the flavors. As well as some like food imagery on the front. So basically, as soon as you see the package, you know exactly what it is. And this is our 4th generation of packaging. So this has definitely been an evolution.
So you live in St. Louis. Where do you sell your product?
Well, of course, we sell it online. So we sell anywhere in the United States, direct to consumer. And then we're in, I'd say, approaching 1,000 retail locations. A lot of that specialty, like I mentioned, golf hardware, some convenience stores. And we actually, it's a whole different story, but we recently got a yes, and we're heading into Walmart. So that'll be rolling out next
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. And it actually started through a podcast appearance, ironically enough. If you'd like, I can share that story real quick to kind of give people an idea.
Please do that because this is still about our topic.
Yeah.
Of clarity.
I talk a lot in marketing about planting seeds. And of course, I come from direct response. I love the idea of selling something immediately, knowing my conversion rates and all the things that you do when you're online. But there's still a very important element of planting seeds and telling stories and getting people warmed up and doing these things that you don't know exactly when the harvest is going to come or what it will look like. But in this story in 2020, I was on a podcast called Bigger Pockets Business. And, we talked about business partnerships. Actually, we got pretty in depth with what we were just hitting on a moment ago. And that was the point of the show. And I, talked about Fire Creek, and we had a really good promotion, and we sold some snack sticks to their audience, and it was great. Well, one of the things I've learned in doing that a lot is that you get these relationships that can come out of it. And this young guy reached out to me and befriended me, and we had some Zoom calls. And he was big into real estate investing, and we just chit chatted about some various things. And I think it was like our third call. He's like, you know what? I actually work in finance at Walmart. He's like, I'm going to quit my job pretty soon. But before I do, let me see if I can find a contact. And so he did. He made an email introduction to the meat snacks buyer there in Bentonville, Arkansas, at the headquarters of Fire Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, or at the headquarters of Walmart, I should say. And so this guy was very cordial. He gave me an hour-long Zoom call. He wasn't in a position to be, they only buy stuff once a year in a given category. But it got us on his radar. He actually left that position. We did not know it, but he put in a word for us with his replacement. And he said, hey, these guys are an up-and-coming brand. They have a really good product. He took some samples. And so the next buyer, that was 2020. Now in 2021, she reaches out, and I have an introductory call with her. And she's like, just wanted to, I'm new to the position. Wanted to learn what your brand offers, et cetera. That was great. So in 2022, this year, in the spring, Walmart has an event they call Open Call, and you can be invited down as a small business and, basically pitch your products. Well, she invited us down specifically. And then when we got in there, it was like a 5-minute conversation because we showed her a prototype of a format that she wanted, basically a little bites bag that she thought would work good in her aisle. She said, can you do this? We said, yeah, sure we can. So then we came back again about 2 months ago and showed her the prototypes and talked about pricing and et cetera. And she said, great, you're in. We won't know when we're recording this right now. We won't know for another month how many initial stores we'll be in. We'll be in some sizable amount, but certainly not the whole country to start. And then we'll get a purchase order. So it'll be 2023 before anything is on a shelf somewhere. But pretty cool that, it's a pretty great credential for our brand to pass the muster and be accepted into Walmart. And I'm not saying being on one podcast got us into Walmart, but I don't think there's any chance we'd be in Walmart without that podcast, because it was the relationships and it put it on our radar that it was even a possibility for us.
I think that's amazing. I'm in awe of what you've been able to accomplish, but obviously God wanted you to do this because it's like, seriously, the door's been open since the first dude on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah. And I've got multiple stories like that of just crazy kind of like lottery moments that, they're like unicorn moments in the history of not only that brand, but my coaching business. And they just wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have planted those seeds. Right. And so I'm a really big advocate of that yes, you should go on a podcast and or have a partnership in some way because there's a direct sale. There's a great relationship with the host, et cetera. But also, these things live on for a long time, and you just don't know exactly what ripple in the universe is gonna like spit something great out on the other side. So
that's amazing. I'm impressed. Congratulations.
Well,
that's
thank you.
Very good. Very good. So how can what you did with what you have done so far with Walmart help other entrepreneurs? Yeah,
well, I think the big key there and really in all of these things is taking action. And I know that may sound trite, but my coaching business, Simple Success Coaching, as you open with, it's all about helping people have clarity and confidence in their work. So a lot of people come to me because, hey, I'm stuck, I'm plateaued, my offer is falling flat. I don't know like what kind of lead magnet people care about. And the antidote to almost all those questions is let's try some things, right? Let's take some action. And I like to say that action breeds clarity. So in other words, if I'm feeling stuck and unclear, we'll go take an action, and with action comes clarity. And then also with action, as you repeat and you try different things, you get more competence. And then that clarity and that competence they kind of combine for confidence, right? So if you're doing stuff and you learn how to do it better, you get confident in what you're doing, and it becomes a virtuous cycle that way. So I think that's kind of the big lesson is we just constantly, we still do, both for Fire Creek and for my coaching business. I'm just constantly putting myself out there, having conversations. I super value relationships in my network, and I'm just constantly putting in those reps, right? So I have a goal personally of being on one podcast a week. And sometimes that's for coaching. Sometimes that's for Fire Creek. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn. And the idea is not that any individual activity is like going to move the needle necessarily, but you almost can't lose. If you build 50 new relationships a year, one a week, and you're reaching 50 different audiences with your message, and I post daily on LinkedIn. So that's, 365 individual posts that have a chance for people to discover. That's what I found. And it is work, but that's how I've gotten clarity, is by putting in those reps and taking that action.
So have you found any success on LinkedIn, for example?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I've only been active on there for about 4 months, I would say. I've had like everybody, I had a profile for 10 years. It was like a glorified resume, I guess, but I wasn't ever active. And so what I've found there is if you're active, especially commenting on people's things, and then, if you're comfortable producing some new content, kind of sharing what's going on in your business, in your life, you can definitely grow your network quickly. So I think I'm up to close to 3,000 followers on there now, which, it's 3,000 individuals that have chosen to connect with me in a proactive way. And I also do some things with, some other strategies that feed that. So like my podcast appearances, I'll use that and leverage it to feed my network on LinkedIn. But yeah, specifically my main offer that I do with my coaching business, I call it an accelerator, and it's a 90-day program. It's a fairly sizable investment. And it's capped at 12 people. I'm currently in the middle of teaching a group of those entrepreneurs, and at least half of them came from LinkedIn, and they were all initially just cold outreach. So none of them knew me 4 months ago,
Wow.
But in either seeing me, or we had a conversation in direct message, which led to a Zoom call, which led them to say, wow, I really need this help. They've signed up, for, again, a sizable investment. And, so the proof's in the pudding, I guess, right? I guess the short way to say that is I've gotten some really amazing high value clients from being active on LinkedIn.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But it's consistency too. Consistency over time. That's the key.
It is. Yeah. And I tell that to people with the podcast guesting is really the focus. That's the focus of that accelerator group too. And I say, look, a lot of people, they come in two camps, and they'll say, look, I've been on like 2 podcasts. Someone invited me on. It was fun, but and maybe I got a client out of it or whatever. And then the other camp, they'll say, I've been on 100 podcasts. I've never gotten a single sale. It's like, well, each of you have something broken with your approach, right? You're not choosing the right shows. You're not telling the right story. You don't have the right call to action, or you're probably not doing anything to leverage each of those opportunities to actually get sales from it. So, and a big part of that is making it a system. And that's that key word you just said, consistency. So it's not about doing things once or twice. It's about doing them consistently. But for the 100 that didn't get any sales, they did it consistently, but they did it wrong, right? So you have to do the right things consistently to really set yourself up for kind of inevitable success.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a referral when we hang up here,
okay.
And that might help both of you. But he's on his like 700th podcast, and he's very, very, very successful.
Cool.
Yeah, and so okay, so you've got this key here. You go from clarity to what am I missing? Page.
Oh, it was I did action to clarity to competence to confidence is kind of the path I went down a minute ago.
That's right. It's up here. To confidence, to clarity. And what I'm seeing here is that this is an easy thing to do. I mean, this is not We're not talking about high-end marketing. We're talking about daily work. Yes?
Correct. And the way I teach it, it's not daily work that the entrepreneur listening would be doing themselves. I'm a huge advocate of outsourcing and getting some help. And what I found, if you train them in the right way, and part of our accelerators, we're training people's virtual assistants and actually helping them hire one if they don't have one. If you do that the right way, and these people are equipped with a very specific approach to solving one problem, in this case, getting you featured on podcasts, it's like 5 to 10 hours a week. They can be doing that, and it's like a machine then, right? So for the entrepreneur, the effect feels like I just show up on shows that are in my calendar, and I've got notes about what I'm going to talk about. I do a good job in the interview. I have a clear call to action, and that feeds my marketing machine. But to start out, of course, the entrepreneur should, I think, at least through one round of this, learn how to do it, understand the nuances, set the vision for why they're doing a certain marketing activity, but then they should really be focused on efficiency. And efficiency in this case comes from a little bit of software, and then mostly, just virtual assistant labor.
Okay. Yeah, I have seen that, and I have chosen, I've always got something else going on. So that's my excuse, but also, well, it's an excuse I admit that, and it's, that's not going to help me. Yeah.
And it's my excuse too, right? It's very common. And that's why, so when I created this accelerator program, it's kind of the same experience as that trade show with Fire Creek. I did a lot of one-on-one coaching. I did numerous small groups, and I really accepted open hands feedback and said, what do you really want? And they're like, well, I love the idea of showing up on podcasts. I love telling stories. I love that you helped me craft a really smart story. But what I don't want is like doing all the research and actually writing all the pitches for each of these appearances. And I said, well, great. Well, I have an assistant that does that. And it was like, well, they're like, well, I don't know how to teach an assistant or even find an assistant. So I said, well, why don't we just make that part of the program? So now that's part of what we do. Right. So to your point, time is always the number one objection. And that's what we try to really help people with directly, is like, okay, well, yeah, I get it. Like, I don't know how to train a VA to do a lot of different stuff, but I know how to hire the right one and train them to do this.
Yes.
This very specific task. So that they can just do that. Right. But what I'm not advocating for what I want to do as a business is I don't want to be an agency. There are agencies that book you on podcasts, and then you just show up. I'm a huge advocate, as part of my ethos, that your marketing and the system like this should be an asset of your business and not the whole marketing system outsourced. So that's why I like having the standard operating procedures, the scripts, all the stuff you need be part of your business. And I feel like that's a huge value add to people versus just kind of, trying to wave a hand at it and pay someone else to do all the work that's not part of your team. So I know there's different approaches to solving the same problem.
So is that part of the partnership marketing blueprint that you're giving away to the listeners?
It is. Yeah. The framework is what that blueprint is. So, and I can go through that really quickly. It's 5 P's. So it's purpose, plan, pitch, perform, and profit. Right. And so that when they go over and they check out the blueprint, it's going to show them in a short video form what each of those things means. And it's the approach, whether they do it themselves, whether they hire an agency, whether they hire us or join the accelerator. That's really a proven framework and system for how to do partnerships well, including podcast guesting. And then the accelerator, we kind of take that on steroids, do a lot of it for them, and have a mastermind experience around it with 11 other entrepreneurs who are also growing in the same direction. But yes, in short, that is the framework, and that's exactly what they'll get for free.
Purpose, plan, pitch, performance, and process.
Profit was the last
Profit,
one.
see?
Yeah, the most important one.
The most important one. I should be a nonprofit. Okay, well, there's a lot we've covered here, and I think that people should know that they should go to your website to check out Simple Success Coaching. When I wrote it in to look for it, I said, my God, that should be everybody's URL. Seriously, Simple Success Coaching. And that's Dustin at simplesuccesscoaching.com.
That's right. That's my email. People are very welcome to send me questions, or if they have need any help in any way, I'm an open book.
And he's on LinkedIn, which will also be on his page on my website. And do you have anything what can somebody do today? What can they do now?
Well, if they're feeling stuck, I mean, I think what they could do is take some kind of mini action, right? And it obviously is going to depend what they're stuck on. If they're stuck on, they don't know why people aren't buying their product, then I would go plug into a trusted friend, a peer, someone maybe who you've had some conversations about, maybe even a previous client that's no longer your client, just someone, and go take action and have that conversation and get some outside perspective. Like, I'm a coach. I feel like I'm really good at what I do, and I'm good at like naming other people's products and things like that. I'm horrible at doing it for myself because there's this idea that we're inside a jar, right, of our own business, and we can't read the labels on the outside. So that's the main thing I would say is get some external perspective. Even if it's like your mom, like someone, like explain your frustration and where you're stuck to someone. And I almost guarantee you're going to get some benefit out of that and help get you unstuck. That's, you and I, that's what we do as coaches. I love to see people have breakthroughs and get unstuck. But at the core, it's that being vulnerable enough to go admit that you feel stuck and talk to someone about it.
That's it. Ask the question. If you don't ask, you won't get.
Exactly.
I want to thank Dustin Reichmann for being here today and talking about all he spoke about, including confidence and clarity. And I think that's all she wrote. And I would going to remind my listeners to listen to this podcast again. 99% of the time, I remind the listeners to go through this one more time with a pen and paper and make notes, because Dustin has given you so much stuff in our brief time together that you haven't remembered 20% of what he told you. So get a pen, get paper, don't put it on the computer. It's got to go in your body, connecting to all of your nerves, and write down the questions that you want answers to, and contact Dustin Reichmann at simplesuccess.com, simplesuccesscoaching.com. Thank you for being here today, Dustin. This has been really, really informative, and I appreciate your point of view, your perspective.
Well, thanks, Joanne. It was a lot of fun to unpack what can sometimes be a messy story, but I really hope people do get some clarity and confidence as a result.
Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.